Hey, all. A while ago, I was introduced to the concept of the law of attraction. A friend recommended a book called The Secret by Rhonda Byrne. I was fascinated by all the stories in the book explaining the law of attraction. Many people in the book shared experiences about the law of attraction working in their lives. The law of attraction states that our thoughts bring either good or bad things into our lives. We bring these good things into our lives by manifesting them. If we just think hard enough and long enough and positive enough, we will bring whatever we want into our lives. It also states that if we constantly focus on negative things, we will bring negative things into our lives. I agreed with much of what this book claimed. I'm a big believer that what we focus on will increase. The principles of life coaching also teach that our thoughts create the results in our lives. I know this to be true, so I loved learning about the law of attraction. Many self help books teach this law in different ways. After I read The Secret, I decided to put the law of attraction to the test. I picked something that would be unlikely to happen and used the law of attraction to bring it to me. I wrote down what I wanted to see, and it was a bald eagle, and I focused on it. I believed it would happen, and I had faith that it would. I envisioned how thrilling it would be to see a bald eagle in the wild. I lived in Oregon for almost a decade. One of my very favorite things to do while living there was floating down the Rogue River in my kayak. I still believe it's one of the most beautiful places in the world. I often saw bald eagles while floating the river. There was even a spot with a huge eagle nest that I passed every time I went down the river. I loved when I passed the nest and I saw eagles in it. I live in Utah now, and I have never seen a bald eagle in Utah. I decided to use the law of attraction to manifest a bald eagle sighting. I didn't know how it might happen. Would I see a bald eagle in Utah? I had no plans to travel anywhere else that bald eagles might be seen, so I manifested my bald eagle for months. Last summer, our family and friends had planned a trip to Lake Powell. The houseboat we were planning to stay on for the week broke down. We had 2 days to change our plans. We booked an Alaskan cruise at the last minute and drove the next morning to Washington to get on the cruise ship. On the drive to Seattle, I suddenly realized that seeing a bald eagle had just become a possibility. I excitedly told my kids that I really hoped to see a bald eagle while we were in Alaska. My family made it a quest to find an eagle for me. Sure enough, on an excursion, we drove through an area where we saw not one bald eagle, but many bald eagles. My family was very enthusiastic, and this spread on the bus. My family, as well as strangers, excitedly pointed out each bald eagle they spotted. The law of attraction worked. I was super excited. Did this mean that I could literally bring anything into my life I wanted? But there was a part about everything that had happened that I didn't like. And it was that I had brought everything to myself because I was thinking negatively. Is this true? I still love this law because it teaches to have faith and hope and to believe, which is right in line with Christ's teachings. We get to believe whatever we want. I believe we can have hope and joy and happiness in this life and create our desires. And I also believe that Heavenly Father desires this for us as well. So I have a vision board that I've created on my computer, and I drag and I drop pictures of my desires on a Word document. On a separate document, I write a detailed description of what I desire, what it specifically looks like, and the pictures that I read. I look at the pictures as I read my desires, and I give myself a couple of minutes nearly every day to concentrate on my vision board. It's part of my self care routine. I invite you to think about all the visions that have been opened up to many of the prophets of the future to help them to see things as they really are. We can visualize our divine potential as well. When my desire is fulfilled, I delete the written description and I save that picture in my desires fulfilled document so that I can remember to be grateful for what I've been already given. I have 10 pictures and I will have two more to move to my desires fulfilled document this coming month. This is fun and exciting for me. I have taught others this concept. They tell me how much quicker they have realized their dreams. They also say that they have accomplished more than they imagined in a shorter time. I have experienced the same phenomenon. With that said, something about this law hasn't seemed 100% correct ever since I learned it. Even after my eagle sighting, I was skeptical. I questioned what didn't seem in line with the gospel in relation to this law. I know that God's law is the absolute truth. I started to recognize the true principles of the gospel of Jesus Christ that didn't quite align with the law of attraction. If you do attract everything that comes into your life, all the good and the bad, you control everything that comes to you. That is some serious power. But here lies the problem. First of all, how does God's will play into this? If my desires aren't God's desires, I've learned and I believe that God's will is always the way. My ways are not always his ways. And this is because I'm a human in this mortal world, so I have a limited perspective. His ways are sometimes not my ways because he has an eternal perspective. His desires for me are sometimes not my desires. He and his will comes before my desires in my life. And so often I've found that the things that are so difficult for me are exactly what I needed to become a better version of myself. Second, how does this account for opposition? I don't believe that everything negative, including abuse, has happened because I brought it to myself by my thoughts. That doesn't make sense to me. There are many other experiences that don't make sense. I don't believe my 8-year-old daughter brought on a car accident a couple of years ago where she got very injured. She needed over 150 stitches in 23 places on her face. And lastly, how is the law of attraction practical? Certainly, our thoughts are huge factors in getting what we want, but we also have to make efforts as well. We have to take actions to get the results we want in our lives. Belief alone isn't enough. Work is an eternal principle. What I believe about the law of attraction now is that it works so often because Heavenly Father wants to give us many good things. He knew how much I wanted to see an eagle. Just as I love to give my children gifts that I know they will love, Heavenly Father delights in giving me gifts that I will love. When I spotted the eagles in Alaska, the first thing I did was say a prayer of thanks to Heavenly Father for creating these eagles and allowing me the privilege of seeing them. I gave him credit for the experience, not myself the credit for manifesting the eagles. I choose to believe and acknowledge that every good thing in my life comes from God. God is a God of plenty. He is a God of abundance. Next, we went on a whale watching tour. It was beautiful and amazing, but I felt a little disappointed. I had imagined all the photos I had seen of whales breaching. This happens when most or all of the whale's body leaves the water, but I didn't realize how rare this occurs. We spotted a few whales, but when we saw really the whale, it was a very small portion of the whale's back coming up to the surface for a short period to fill its lungs with air. And it was just long enough for warm air to escape from its blowhole, and then it disappeared. I had to use my imagination to envision the size and the scope of what was actually under the surface, unseen by my natural eyes. There was an enormous creature just below the water that I couldn't quite see. But what does this have to do with marriage? Why did I share either of these stories? Because instead of the law of attraction, which is partly true, I believe in the law of creation, which is the way God made everything. In Moses 3:5, we read that God created all things spiritually before he created them physically. This is very important to understand. Everything that God does is the best way and the true way. And he creates them all first in his mind. What we want to create in our lives must be created spiritually or internally in our minds and hearts before our behaviors will follow. We have the power to create good relationships and a good marriage. We have the power to create love, joy, and peace here and now. It happens inside us first. Here's an example of my own marriage recently. My husband had a day off of work, and I had plans to do some spring cleaning in the yard with him. He had other plans. I thought, wait a minute, I'm not physically strong enough to do this without him. Then I felt frustrated. Things like this used to happen all the time. I'd be mad all day. We just had different ideas about how things were going to go. When I wasn't doing the internal spiritual work, my life looked like this. The circumstance was my husband had a day off work and he went to hang out with a friend. My thought was he should have stayed and helped me with the yard work. Then I would feel frustrated. My actions were that I would sulk, I would spin in my head about the work not being done and his choices. I'd hastily do the work, probably get hurt from being hasty or doing things that were too physically demanding, and then I'd blame him for all of it. And the result was that some things got done, but I created distance between us. This is what doing the internal or spiritual work first looks like. When I realized that I was feeling frustrated and I was doing this work that I now teach you, I knew it was because of my thoughts. It's always our thoughts. It's not the fact that my husband had a day off work and he was going to hang out with a friend. That's what we think is the problem. My brain always wants me to believe it's my husband's choices that are causing me frustration, but it's not. As I teach, this work takes humility, and doing this internal work will change my behavior if I'm willing to do it. I can never change the circumstance, or if I try to, it does not look very good. What I used to do was I would be such a pain and complain enough that he would just stay home and cancel with his friend. But was I winning? The work got done, yes, that is true, but we'd be mad at each other all day while cleaning the yard. I've learned no work getting done is worth it. As good as getting things done feels, creating even more disconnection in my marriage was never worth it. But I felt so strong for many years that if I didn't tell him that he needed to help me, the resentment would just keep getting bigger and bigger, which I couldn't handle either. But what if there was a different way to approach this, even in the exact same situation? What if I was the one who was creating resentment with my own thoughts about the situation? As it turns out, that's exactly what was happening. So, if the circumstance was the same, my husband had the day off work and he went and spent time with his friend, the thought that I could change would be I can choose to do something I want to do and not do any of the spring cleaning and have my own back in that way. Or I could get as much done as I wanted to without him, if that was my plan. And then I felt empowered, not resentful. So in this case, I just decided to check in with myself. Do I want to just do something else that's fun for me? But I really did want to get as much done as I could. So I tried to enjoy myself, which I ended up doing just fine. I listened to podcasts, my favorite music. I felt gratitude for the beautiful spring day outside. I made myself berries and cream as a reward afterward. When he got home, he saw all I'd done. He appreciated it. He asked me if I needed help with the big stuff. He helped me. I thanked him for what he did. I wasn't resentful at all the whole time. And I was having my own back because I chose to clean up even without him. And because I chose it instead of feeling like it was forced upon me, it didn't feel at all like it would have. So the result was that really, even though he went and did his thing with his friend, everything got done that I wanted to get done. And I created connection between us, regardless of our circumstances, which is our spouse not helping or doing it on our timeline or in our way. We can choose to do the inner work required to have our own backs in a situation. If a certain circumstance comes up a lot with your spouse, like it keeps happening over and over again, instead of being resentful, make a plan beforehand. These are your three options. You can change your thoughts, like I did in this situation. You can just allow and process the emotions of frustration in your body, which if you want to know how to change your thoughts, go to podcast 20. If you want to know how to process and allow emotions, go to podcast 21. Or you could just set a boundary from a loving place for yourself and for them. And that's in podcast 31. To create loving relationships with others, We must be intentional and deliberate. This doesn't come naturally to most of us. We must remember that our circumstances are neutral. So, my husband, the fact that he had the day off work was neutral, and the fact that he went to hang out with his friend was neutral. And it stays neutral until we think thoughts which create negative feelings in our bodies, like resentment. What I found in my marriage was that I had it all backwards. I was constantly focusing on the action line in my marriage with my husband. This is the physical creation first, which God didn't do. Things were rough between us and I wanted them to be better. So this is what I tried to do. I tried to be a better listener. I tried to serve him more. I tried to be more helpful than ever. I made dinner. I cleaned the house. I did his laundry. I got him gifts that I thought he would like. I tried to hold my tongue when I wanted to say something unkind. I had sex when I didn't feel like it or want to. I worked for years trying to behave a certain way so that we would have a better relationship. Doing that action line is focusing on the physical creation before you've created the internal spiritual creation. When we focus on that tiny part of the whale that surfaces in the outside world, it doesn't work. And it actually makes things worse because it's coming from a place of lack, a place of resentment, a place of, I'm doing everything. This is unfair. I didn't understand that the bigger problem was the whole whale beneath the water that I wasn't addressing. I didn't understand that the way I was interpreting my marriage through what I was thinking, saying, and feeling created the difficulties I experienced for years. Creating an amazing marriage started with the internal spiritual work. I had to focus on the huge part of the whale inside me instead of the behaviors that surfaced. You all know by now that my marriage was miserable for years and I felt so stuck. I made very little progress because I was focusing on that action line. I was trying to change my behaviors. My thoughts underneath the surface were critical, judgmental, and full of blame. This created resentment, anger, hurt, and pain. Then I learned the internal work required to create the relationship I wanted. This needed to take place before I could be authentic and genuine in my actions and my behaviors. I'm sure you can all think of times when you have pretended and been fake with people in an effort to not hurt their feelings or whatever. And it really does come across eventually as not genuine and not authentic. When I tried to change my actions before I had changed my mind and heart, my spouse could see right through it. Even if your behaviors appear to be nice, it comes across as manipulation and controlling. Spouses are amazing at reading each other. You know each other better than probably anyone else. That's why sometimes no words have been said, and you can feel like you could cut the tension in the room with a knife. It really didn't matter if I did all the right things. When I was constantly thinking that my husband was the one who needed to change, it came across as controlling. It didn't matter how hard I tried. If I just knew inside that what he was doing was all wrong, that he disappointed me, and that he was the cause of so much of my pain, my behaviors felt manipulative to him. Here's another example. I have a body fix program in my coaching program. I coach on weight loss all the time. My clients often want to fix their action line, the physical part first and foremost. What should they eat? What should they not eat? How much should they exercise? They haven't been getting the results they want, or if they do, the results are short-lived. They are putting the cart before the horse, just as I did in my marriage. The circumstance is just a number on the scale, what they weigh right now. It is neutral until they think thoughts about it, like, I am overweight. I don't like my body. I hate looking in the mirror. Swimsuit shopping is torture. They have lots of negative self-talk, self-loathing, and self-doubt. They don't appreciate their bodies and they don't understand why the weight won't come off. The action line is so much harder. Those behaviors, the physical creation is near impossible when they haven't done the internal work first. So what is the answer? Figure out the whale under the surface first. Do the spiritual creation, or in other words, the mental work of internally and deliberately choosing thoughts that create feelings of excitement, hope, love, or gratitude around what you want to accomplish in your marriage, in your body fix goals, in your life, anything you want to improve or achieve. Your actions will actually just follow and you'll get the results you desire. After I fixed my marriage, I fixed the weight I had gained while eating my emotions through my marriage difficulties. Neither worked until I had the right mindset. Just imagine what happens when you live this law of attraction. What if you not law of attraction, the law of creation. What if you experimented with creating what you want in God's way? I know from experience that your progress will grow exponentially in whatever you are pursuing. Working on the whale underneath looks like this. The three things below the surface that are the huge things are spiritually. If you're thinking spiritually, it's to question your thoughts when you feel low. Choose to see circumstances differently. Change your perspective on the situation, like I did with the yard work. Ask God for you to see things from his perspective. Get curious. Ask him for help in changing your mind and heart. Mentally, you then choose to change what you think and say, and you focus on that. Whatever you focus on will increase. Emotionally, you just feel different about the circumstances when you change your thoughts. You just allow emotions, process them, and allow Christ to help you heal from them. Now you're ready for your behavior to change, which will feel almost effortless because when your thoughts and feelings are good, your actions automatically follow. So now we get to the physical part, which everyone hops to, including me for many years. Now you can do what you want to do. You can act, and the results will follow you. You will be behaving from a place of authenticity and true identity, and it will feel so different. Your spouse will know it's not manipulative or controlling. In Ezekiel 36:26, it says, "And I will give you a new heart and a new spirit I will put within you. I will remove the heart of stone from your flesh and give you a heart of flesh." I know what it's feel like to have a heart of stone in my marriage. We were so close to separating and to just calling it quits. And I know that Heavenly Father can give you a new heart and a new mind as you do this work. The law of attraction doesn't include God. The true law of creation involves God as a co-creator with you. Through his grace, you can attain a new mind and new heart. You can't do it alone. I've had to question and reconstruct so many false beliefs from my past about my relationship with God, my relationship with myself, my relationship with my husband. Then I've questioned thoughts about my body, my self-image, my self-confidence, questioning every area of my life where it hasn't felt quite like I wanted it to be. I've had limiting or false beliefs about myself and others. And so it's become this lifelong quest to ferret those out, find them, and change them. The possibilities are endless. I hope you'll begin the journey of discovering how to live into your true identity and your divine potential. It's the work of progressing, and it's the work of becoming who we're meant to be. And it's also going to help so much in treating others how we want to treat them. I know how daunting this work might seem. That's why I have different programs that teach the beliefs that create things like an amazing marriage, like your health goals, like banishing anxiety and depression and overwhelm in your life. I've been able to create so much in my life, and I have seen so many of my clients have amazing results. So if you need any help with this work, come and get coaching. It will change your life. None of this work is a quick fix and easy, but it is lasting, which is so much better. The way to wrap your head around your own possibilities, if they seem completely unattainable, is to seek and expect miracles. President Nelson told us that when we do this, anything is possible with Christ. And I absolutely believe this. Have the best week, guys. Thanks for being here, and we'll see you next time.